Thank you so much for your time. And the first question is about the talks with Taliban. The talks in Pakistan are said to be the first face-to-face negotiation between the Afghan government and Taliban. The question is, how important are they now that we know that U.S. and China is also involved in it as observers? And what do you think should U.S. do more to advance these talks?
Well, of course, any time there is conversations going on and even negotiations, it's a good sign. There are several questions. Does this group who's negotiating for the Taliban, do they represent all of the Taliban or just part of it? What is the goal of the talks as articulated by the two sides? But we hope that these talks will succeed. We think it's very important, and perhaps, and not only perhaps, the Taliban are growing weary. I also think that the Pakistanis can play a significant role, and one significant role they can play is to cut off and stop supporting the Haqqani network, which continues to orchestrate attacks in Afghanistan unacceptably.
Mm-hmm. And coming to that point, is the U.S. in a position to force Pakistan to make them, take these talks forward and make some advancement in this? And at the same time, to what extent does the U.S. have influence over the outcome of the talks?
Well, I think the United States can play a constructive role. I believe that the new chief of the Pakistani army, General Sharif, is a very good man. I believe that there is still influence in ISI that is supporting the Haqqani network. We all know that. That needs to stop. I believe that we should be optimistic, but I think that optimism should be very guarded.
Mm-hmm. And there's a theory that a political settlement could potentially lessen U.S.'s congressional commitment to provide aid to Afghanistan. Is there such a risk?
The great risk is the president's commitment to remove everyone except for those in our embassy by 2017. That would put all of our gains at great risk, because the Afghans are great fighters. They have proven that in this last year. But they need intelligence, they need air support, they need a number of other aspects of American involvement. And that means around 60,000 American, roughly. It means giving the Afghans that assistance and capability. If we withdraw to the embassy without helping them with those missions, including the base at Bagram, including the base at Kandahar, then we risk the same scenario we saw in Iraq when we withdrew. And that means that the Taliban, aided by the Haqqani network, aided by sanctuary in Pakistan, will then start succeeding. We are already seeing the Iranians providing weapons to the Taliban.
Mm-hmm. And on your recent trip to Afghanistan, you met with President Ghani and has staked his presidency over these talks with Taliban, and controversially has engaged Pakistan also in these talks. Is his gamut paying off?
We hope so. Mm-hmm. We don't know, but the outreach that President Ghani made to Pakistan, I think, was the right move. I hope that it will be reciprocated. As we know, Pakistani domestic politics are very, very complex. Mm-hmm. But one can hope that the Pakistanis will see it in their interest to urge the Taliban to come to some agreement. Look, I'm not optimistic about the outcome, but I do think that it's important to make these efforts to resolve this conflict. But I'd also point out, if the Taliban believe the United States is going to be almost out, almost completely, by 2017, that removes a great deal of the motivation for them to reach a peaceful agreement, because they're going to think that they can succeed. Mm-hmm.
And you have a strong reaction towards the withdrawal troop level from Afghanistan. What do you think should the current administration or the next administration do, going forward?
The troop level should be dictated by the conditions on the ground. In this last year, the Afghan military have shown they can fight, and they have defeated the Taliban, but they've also taken very high losses. So, depending on the situation on the ground, should determine the degree of U.S. presence. As I said, we need close air support, they need medevac, they need intelligence, they need training, and some other capabilities that the United States can provide. To withdraw to the U.S. Embassy in Kabul would be a recipe for disaster, the same thing we have seen in Iraq.
And how optimistic you are that this aid will be provided to Afghanistan?
I don't know. This president has shown a monumental misjudgment, and he's proven that in Iraq, and I think that's also the case in Afghanistan. We found out yesterday in a hearing with our Secretary of Defense that they have trained only 60 people, 60, to fight against ISIS, which has got at least 1,000 people flowing in from all over the world fighting on behalf of ISIS every month. It's delusional.
I covered that story. And do you see ISIS-inspired group gaining further traction in the region as a result of possible security vacuum?
ISIS is not losing, so therefore they are winning. Yes, they have taken temporary setbacks in certain areas such as Kobani. They still control the second largest city in Iraq, Mosul. They are orchestrating attacks inside Baghdad. So this idea that the administration, the president articulated in his speech after his meeting at the Pentagon, that somehow we are defeating ISIS, again, delusional is the only word that I can think of.
And your last words for people in Afghanistan?
People in Afghanistan have proven their courage, their willingness to sacrifice. The sacrifices in the last year have been higher than ever before by the young men and women who are serving in the Afghan military. They do not want to be governed by the Taliban again. And so my message is that we admire the bravery of your people. They have shown that they can defeat the Taliban, but they also need continued help from the United States of America.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much again.